Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here with Markus Hirzig today. Again, we're looking at working with fear, presence in it, becoming conscious that we even have fear, because often we're so totally dissociated, we don't know that we have it. And we do things like me, going around rushing, trying to save the world or whatever, instead of just feeling. So Markus is going to help us presence that and take us further, digest and transform it, hopefully. Welcome, Markus.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna. Good morning, evening, good night, wherever you are, in which time zone. It's also nice via Jenna, we have these Commonwealth of Nations, the old British Commonwealth of Nations here. It's always a nice, nice meeting. There's a special atmosphere. Yeah. And I think it's already good what we have heard in the introduction by Jenna. So before we start into maybe guided meditation or something, let's first of all hear a little bit about what Jenna said, that we have the ability to feel, to notice something, and we also have the ability to not feel something. So not feeling is not a lack of ability in general, because feeling, sensing, perceiving is inbuilt in our systems. Since hundreds of thousands of years it's working. So there are, of course, things we cannot perceive, maybe infrared light, ultraviolet light, where our senses or X-rays, our senses are not designed for that. But even in the frame of our senses, we can feel, perceive, and not feel. So not feeling is not something we are lacking of. Not feeling is something we have learned. And it's also an ability which is inbuilt in our system. Simply when it's too much. And too much can be a lot of things. That it starts when we are, let's say, alone in a dark room as a child and we have no connection, no protection by the parents. It can be an accident, it can be overwhelming situations. So feeling and also not feeling is, let's say, serving life. Maybe just for a moment to have that sink in. Feeling and also not feeling is serving life. Your life. But not only your individual life, but also collective life. The interesting thing in that is, well, let's have an example. So when you love dogs, you might have had the situation you go with your dog to the veterinarian and the dog gets an injection or something. And then when the dog comes out, the ears are hanging down, the whole dog is just a mess and totally no vitality anymore and totally sick. And then after a minute or so, the dog starts shaking. And when we don't suppress the shaking, when we don't interrupt that, the stress shakes out of the system. The freeze shakes out of the system. It looks, let's say, very terrible, and maybe we are also inclined to stop this, but when we don't interfere, the mechanism comes out. The stress, which got bound in physical tension, starts to vibrate out of the system. And you also might have experienced that on your own. You experience something, let's say, dangerous, and then you go through the situation, you're functioning. That's also the sense of this thing. You're functioning, you're going on, you in the service of life, you go on, you function. And then you come home, you sit down, and your system starts shaking. You feel shaky. So the shakiness is a corrective mechanism. It allows the tension to vibrate out of the system. The thing is that we are often conditioned to be tough and have things together and definitely not shake. So we hold the stress in, but the stress is not supposed to be held in. It's supposed to come out again, to vibrate, to shake, to tell people how terrible it was. So on the physical level, it needs a discharge. On the emotional level, it needs a discharge. And if this is not possible, we will hold it in the physical, and we will, let's say, redirect the energy into the mental. So we have more tension and more thoughts. We think much more than we are supposed to. And then the thoughts, of course, think they are intelligent. They are intelligent because they are distracting us from feeling, but they are not intelligent in thinking. The thinking is just a mechanism to distract us. So that's the intelligence. The thought, the thinking process itself is the intelligence, not the content, what we think. Because in the content of this thinking, we think stress-avoiding, protective, fear-avoiding thoughts, anxiety-avoiding thoughts. And then our life starts to get driven by that. And every, let's say, thing your system, which is then already overcharged, your system will perceive, wakes up this mechanism. So your system is already overcharged. I don't know if you have, if you know these mouse traps. So the mouse trap has this coil. It gets kind of tensed, and then the mouse gets trapped. So this mechanism is a little bit like that. Our mouse trap is already in tension. And as soon something shows up, our mind, with this overthinking, says, wow, it's about this. So we have our past in our backpack, take it out, it's fully charged, and we glue it to the moment. And the mind thinks that's intelligent, but it's not. Because this moment looks much more difficult and much more dangerous than it is. And now, especially this kind of crisis brings up a lot of mouse traps in people. And then wherever we go, that doof, 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 and then we have these mouse traps on our fingers, and it's painful, and we are totally stressed again. So that we just see that for a moment, we might notice that a lot of the energy surfacing just now has nothing to do with Corona. And even if you have lost your job, or even if your company is dissolving, in this very moment you're sitting on a chair, you're looking at me, and you most probably have chosen a safe place to be at. Let's say according to planetary standards, you're most probably in a very safe place just now. And even with a lost job, your system could relax. Because you anyway cannot do something in this moment. You're listening to me. This is what you have chosen. So even now, your system could relax. And if this speaks to you, let's give that a moment. That we might discern, even if there are these butterflies in my guts or these uncomfortable feelings, just to see, do you have a feeling you might be afraid? Or you might perceive anxiety. Anxiety is a totally different mechanism. Anxiety is the wind from the past entering into this moment. These are the mousetraps, the pressure of the past, and it's channeling itself into this moment. Because our mind says it's about that. it's not about the denial that our situation needs to be looked at and cared for. That's not what I say. But let's also see if the fear-driven, or let's say if we are fear-driven. So fear, for example, is when the saber-tooth comes through your window. Or when you're on the pavement and the car comes at you, and then you jump. Or you go through a dark area and then some guys are coming and, okay, let's do something intelligent and go out of the way. But anxiety is more fear, you know what it's about. Exactly. This is the situation. And anxiety, it kind of creeps into every situation. Through every crack it comes in. It's mostly a feeling also we know already. It's kind of a vague feeling of discomfort we mostly attribute to fear because it has this component. But anxiety is more the wind of the past. And so just simply also for now, when we are meeting here, anxiety is what makes you think, oh, I'm afraid to talk in front of groups. I'm afraid when people look at me, or I'm afraid to look at people. This thing. So it's a vague background mass which attributes to everything in front of us. It's like a cloud we take wherever we are. The good news is, in the moment we notice it, most probably there is also something else. So when you're sitting with us here now, and if there is anxiety, it might come up. You might check, is the saber tooth in your living room? Is there something you have to take care of just now? And if not, and it is okay for you, let's give this feeling, this vague something, a little bit of our presence. Now this is how that feels. But also let's not reinforce it. So in a way, it's like a bubble. So we can touch it, but we also can drown in it. This is not what I say. So when we kind of go into that, it's all over the place. Wherever we look, it's there. That's too much. So the art of feeling and not feeling. And so we might notice, oh, there is a vague discomfort, anxiety. But also notice that there is safety just now. So the possibility to discern. I'm sitting in a safe place and I'm able to notice the discomfort. So the remedy for anxiety is not being courageous or brave or tough, but consciously notice it. And again, this is not a tool for everybody. Because when we are let's say if we have very early traumatizations, this will not work. Then you will really need support. Either you need a person with you integrating that, and it's also good that you care for that, especially in these times of, let's say, social separation. Some of us, so for example, for my system, that's easy. Because anyway, as a child, I have trained myself to go back and do things on my own. So this social separation thing is playing into my pattern. For me, that's not so bad. After some time, it annoys me, but generally it's not so bad. But for others, it's a very tricky thing, and that's not about you're not capable. It's only because you carry a charge, which is, let's say, not from now, and also that we honor that. So for some of us, noticing the anxiety just now, and also noticing the safety, maybe also noticing that there is something else also, for example, other feelings like anger, protest, I don't want this situation. So for some of us, that's in reach. And for others, not feeling is much better. Not feeling gives us the time until we get the support we need to digest that. And if you like, just for a moment to check for yourself. Do you have the feeling you have the resources to notice anxiety, and it's okay? It's not kind of washing you away. Or do you have the feeling, oh no, that's not a good idea to do? And again, that's a tricky question I ask you, because we have the tendency to put pressure on us. We have the tendency to think that we are not capable, that we are wrong, that we are not as strong as other people. But this is already another construction work, let's say. But for the moment, maybe we can have a friendly look. Oh, not feeling is actually a good idea. Disconnecting, going back inside, dissociation maybe, it's actually a good idea. We don't have to feel it. If it's too much, we don't need to feel it. We can contract. We can tense our system so that it doesn't vibrate so much anymore. We can hold our breath. We can pull us back inside. We can distract us. Disney Channel, Netflix. These things are exploding. Zoom, we connect via online courses. And that's partly a digesting, keeping going on with our life, but also it's partly a distraction. And again, it's not about not distracting us. It's about the consciousness of, before I'm overwhelmed, I distract myself. Maybe we all will gain quite some weight after this episode. Eating. We also might notice when our distraction is stopped. So some of us have a lot of sport or something, or go to pubs, to clubs, and that's gone. I need distraction. Otherwise, the mousetraps come up. And then, maybe for the moment, have a kind look at that. A friendly look at that. And if your mind is a little bit critical, you might have a friendly look at the critical mind. Oh, mind, you are really critical just now. If we have the tendency to pressure us, that is in the service of life. I've learned that. When we need to be different as a child, we need pressure, of course. All these things are in the service of life. Because we protect something which is very valuable to us. That's our inner journey, so we want to go on with our life. We have a soul's journey, let's say. And even if we have some bruises, we go on. So not feeling is as good as feeling in many situations. And it also eats a lot of energy. So not feeling, to fade out certain parts of reality, needs a lot of energy. So let's say this energy, of course, lacks a little bit on our journey. It's a little bit like we have a small car and then we have the radio on and the climate and this and that and 5 people in, and the car gets a little bit slow. But anyway, it goes. And if you like, we could go for a moment into a deeper exploration of that. So if you like, you could just check for a moment how do you perceive yourself just now? And the first thing we might do, for example, is, oh, now he has talked so much and I'm totally in my mind, I'm thinking and wanting to understand. So maybe there is a lot of thinking going on just now. So maybe the first self-connection is thinking. And that's absolutely fine. And for a moment, just if there is thinking going on, give that a moment of your presence. You might also have an impression if this is, let's say, relaxed thinking or a little bit overthinking. So do you have the feeling that your mind kind of tries to solve something which comes from somewhere else? So that's kind of a more compulsive thinking. And maybe you could play with the possibility of a friendly atmosphere, the kindness for yourself. Then most probably there is not only thinking, there is mostly also a body perception. So maybe the pressure of your sitting or some areas of your physical body you can notice. So maybe there are certain areas which are highlighted on your inner map. With your inner feeling, your inner seeing, you can connect to that. And you might also have an overall impression. Oh, there are some areas which are kind of close. They appear in your feeling, and some areas which are a little bit, let's say, foggy or, this is feeling, perceiving, and this is not feeling. Wow, great. And maybe it's possible to not judge that, not put pressure, or not to try to feel, but first of all, have the presence to not feel. Oh. And maybe that's good for your mind. We all have that. So you are not the messy only one on this planet who doesn't get it together. We all have that. Even the so-called enlightened ones have that. Psychologists have that. CEOs have that. And the cashier in your supermarket also has that. And so simply for a moment, this is how that works. And it's not that you just now produce that. This is all the time there. And now when we start looking, it's, oh yeah, now I see it. It's a little bit like when you go into your basement and then you look and it's a beautiful basement. And then you go into your living room again, you get a flashlight, go into your basement, and then wow, everything full of spider webs. But that's not because it wasn't there before, it's just because you have a flashlight. You see it more clearly. And maybe if you like, you could experiment a moment with, oh, I allow myself to not feel that. I won't judge myself for this. It is a mechanism I don't know, I have forgotten why it's there, but it's there. This friendliness. And if you like, you can do that on your own, like whatever comes to you. And you also can follow my voice now. I will offer us a body scan from top down. So if you like, you could just notice, let's say, the top of your head. And from there, you gently could, like you pour a kind of a more fluid honey on top of your head. And then so your presence can go to the back of your head and the front of your head. And just how do I feel the back? How do I perceive, notice the back of my head? And the front of my head, my face. And you might notice that maybe you can perceive some regions more than others, and some less than others. And again, I invite you to stay gently and friendly, not to push inside, but just notice, oh, yeah, this is how it is. And then you might move down the neck, on the back and the throat, on the front side. With a curiosity, a friendliness. Then you might move into your shoulders, on the back and also in the front of your shoulders or the higher chest with your collarbones and shoulder joints. You might move a little bit down your upper arms to the elbows. And if that speaks to you, you might simply give your upper arms, your shoulder joints, a little bit of space. You might notice a tension and maybe you can let it go, maybe not. But you can offer it a little bit of a friendly look and space. You might also have a look into your throat and neck, and maybe it needs a little bit more space. Also your jaws. When you give a little bit more space, you might notice kind of an inner movement or something is getting different. And for a moment, you might simply connect this movement Like when you give more space, there is most probably something starts moving. And then if you like, you can also move down your back where the area of the shoulder blades and also the front of your chest, the upper part. And you might notice muscles, shoulder blades, ribs. You might notice your lungs breathing in and out, your heart. And again, you might just allow it a little bit more space, if that speaks to you. Maybe your shoulder blades, your ribs need a little bit of space. Maybe your lungs, maybe your heart. And again, there might be a mechanism inside which says, "Oh, thank you." Also this mechanism is doing a good job. Don't fight it. Don't fight yourself. And then you might move a little bit more down, so the lower chest, into the solar plexus area, on the front, and the lower ribs on the back. And you might notice breathing there. The diaphragm is contracting and letting go, moving. And you also might have a look if there is, let's say, activity, electricity, aliveness, movement, butterflies. And again, you might notice that there are areas which are, let's say, more on your internal map and less on your internal map. And if I wouldn't have spoken about that so much before, most probably your system, your brain, would, let's say, Photoshop it. Like our cell phones, we have these photo programs. And so our internal system delivers us a picture. And if there is not feeling, our brain fills that in. And now we have more awareness, presence. We can honor both. Then you might move down, let's say, into the upper belly region above your belly button, and also the lumbar spine on the back. There might be tension, so some of us have a lot of tension in this area. Maybe you can experiment with a little bit of space. When you experiment with space, then most probably let's say the anatomy, the structure feeling gets a little bit less and we feel a little bit more cloudy. That's also fine. Maybe there's also movement in your belly. Kind of a physical movement. So for some of us it's morning, or for some of us it might also be in the night. So there is maybe digestion happening on the physiological level, but also like these internal energetic movements of aliveness. And sometimes we call them comfortable, And sometimes we call them uncomfortable. And then you might move down into the belly area, below the belly button, down to the pubic bones, pelvis area also, and the back, your lower back. Maybe also your lower back can have a little bit of space because it's doing so much good work. Maybe you can get some applause. Wow, you're really doing a great job. Keeping me upright all the time. Carrying my guts. And then also you can expand into the, let's say, the pelvis, into your sitting bones, where you make contact to your sitting, where you connect to your chair. And if you like, you could experiment with being supported. So you might give your chair a chance to support your sitting bones and to give your weight. Some of us might have learned that we need to do things on our own, and then we keep us a little bit together and up sometimes. Maybe you can give your chair the chance to support you. Like, how would the full weight feel there? So you also can connect to your solid base, to your foundation. And if you allow maybe you can allow your belly to rest in this bowl, to rest on your sitting bones. Maybe you can allow your stomach to rest, your spine to rest, your heart to relax and rest on your foundation, your shoulders, your neck. And you might also get an impression of your thighs also supporting your sitting, your hip joints, your groins. And if there is sometimes a deeper breath or something, you might enjoy that. Maybe there is an additional relief, relaxation. And as you are also muted, you might also do kind of a noise like ah. Sometimes it's not easy for us to make these noises when people are there, so maybe if you're alone. And if you're shy, that's absolutely fine. Don't push. And you might also open your knees, your lower legs, your feet. And again, there is support. The floor is supporting you. Without maybe us noticing, the floor is carrying our weight since decades. The chairs are carrying our weight since decades. And again, you might be invited to even relax a little bit deeper. You can tell your self-healing system if it's appropriate. If it's appropriate now, I want to relax a little bit deeper. And again, therefore, I also explained that a little bit before. So relaxation sometimes comes with, kind of a fear. Oh, no. And also to respect that. Have a look what could happen. So again, sometimes we have stored stuff for later. So we cannot simply not contract. But we have a certain range we can. If it's appropriate, and I kind of let go a little bit deeper. I relieve myself a little bit more. And you see what is the response of your system. And now, if it speaks to you, you can open your eyes or keep them closed. But for a moment, maybe if that speaks to you, you can play with the possibility to connect yourself to the, let's say, abilities of this group. Maybe to one person, maybe to the group. So we have a lot of abilities, a lot of mature, integrated places where we are really capable. And if you like, for a moment, let's tune in, let's connect to these places where we are capable, where we live our life, we have a job, we go in and out of the house, we have friends, we manage things. Many, many things are in place. We might be a little bit trained to look at the things which don't work. Let's say, given our childhood, we are very trained to bridge the parts of our parents which don't work. So also evolutionary, that's a little bit we have an angle here. But now let's consciously tune in with, you look at a lot of competence. We have maybe no idea what these people are doing, but anyway, you look at a lot of competence. And if you like, you can have the competence land in your system. So how do you feel when you look at competence, when you honor capability? Wow, when I look at him or her, wow, that's good. And for a moment, you might sit, take your place in competence. How does that land in you? When you look at competence, how does your system respond? That doesn't mean that you need to like this person or dislike. It only means that you can honor and connect to competence. It also doesn't mean that this person is perfect. So your competence of noticing competence. Maybe you can give that a little bit of space in your own system. That we build a group together of competent people. And not only blindly competent, but also wanting to grow. So you are not here because you're not courageous. You are here because you're adventurous, you're curious. You look for support. There's a part in you where you know you don't need to do it on your own. There are people outside for support. You're not alone on this planet. That you just rest in competence. Maybe you also can connect for a moment to your own competence. For example, the competence to notice the capability of people. That you have a lot of discernment. Oh, with this person I would maybe start a business, or maybe not with this person. Without needing to put it into place, why and what, but there's competence. And maybe your system also relaxes when you focus on competence. That's not to deny things which don't work. But it's also to say yes to what works. And you also might notice when you look at persons, oh, maybe there is feeling, not feeling. You might also have a feeling for that. And then, oh, wow, that's also a competence. This person has learned to fade that a little bit out. A lot of presence there, a little bit faded out here. Not because we are stupid, because we're intelligent. So all our patterns, all our, let's say from the outside, strange behaviors, from the inside, they don't feel strange. They're all serving life. They are maybe not anymore serving a grown-up, mature person, but they definitely served us as children. And if you would tell your system very clearly, okay, now I really want to look at them as the mature man, the mature woman of today. I will not deny my childhood anxieties, but I also will not bring them into the foreground. I will look at them as the mature man, the mature woman of today. There's a lot of things, of capabilities, of solidity, of foundation in you. When there is the magnetism of maybe anxiety, but there is the clarity of the captain. Okay, the waves are high, the wind is stormy, I don't like it, and I'm here. Not to harden yourself, to be tough and go through it, but simply to look as the man, as the woman of today. Like a conscious switch. Anyway, the younger stored energy in us longs for a mature person. And partly we have that, at least partly, most probably much more. When I listen to the latest news from my unreflected anxiety, where does that bring me? and then let's not dive too deeply into that. When I listen to the news from the place of my maturity of today, again, not denying and pushing down the other parts, but really deciding, I look as the man and woman of today. As a kind, but also straight decision. If we are very, very triggered, that's not possible. So if we are in a good fight with our partner, with our boss, with our children, that's maybe really difficult. Or most probably it's nearly impossible. But later, when we come a little bit down, if there is still some space, we can do that. Maybe to play with that. Because when we look through the eyes of the child, the world is very big and we are very small. And the container, our container for feelings is small, like a small glass. But now we are a much bigger person. And then let's breathe for a moment. When, let's say, I say, let's let go of where we are, I don't say let go of your maturity. Let's not go to automatic, whatever that means for us, but let's say, let's be the captain, have the steering wheel. Let's put the young places, the anxiety places on the passenger seat. And let's have the mature place on the driver's seat. Yeah, from my side, thank you very much. So given the time, we are also coming to the closing of today.
Markus, thank you so much. Edith just would like to ask you a question about her experience in Israel. Do you have a chance to answer that briefly?
If it's really brief, I can maybe, but so it's,
Okay.
it's not
Yeah.
So
a huge question. Yeah. But thank you very, very much.
So Edith, if you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I muted myself, but I think that it might take a little bit longer. Well, I'll just say that it was really interesting for me to feel the difference between anxiety and fear, how they hit me in the body, how they come from different places.
Yeah.
And then I've really noticed also the fear of disconnecting. As a child, my way of dealing with things was to disconnect, as I assume for many others. And I also noticed just then that it didn't feel like anxiety when I felt the differences, but it felt like a direct fear of really just the fear of disconnecting. Oh, I'm going to go there again. I'm going to disappear there again. So that was just really interesting to feel the difference.
Yeah.
But that fear of disconnection didn't feel like anxiety, even though it come from the past. It felt like a very direct fear in me.
Yeah. That would lead us a little bit deeper also into our, let's say, into our special function, because anxiety sometimes is a blanket. There is something below that. For example, we might get angry or sad, and when it was not possible to become like protest in our childhood, and then we need to pull that down, and then so anxiety is more a function. It's not really a feeling. It functions as something. And when you come really to the younger places, then it feels also very real. So as you can name that. Oh wow, that's the fear of then, the stored fear. But then also from the maturity of today, we can relate to that.
Yeah.
As a child, we are dependent on a dysfunctional surrounding. So when your parents would have been able to include that, it would have relaxed and it would have gone. but now you needed to save, to kind of store that. And this also comes up as in a way, it's kind of a fear. But it's not connected to the moment, it's a stored fear.
No,
so
absolutely.
we can look at that. But it will kind of channel itself into this situation. And in Israel, you have a very strict shutdown. So also a lot of these things get triggered.
Yeah.
In other countries also. But and also we answer to that according to our own inner safety making, how our safety system is programmed.
Absolutely.
We are conditioned.
Thank
But
you.
this and that need, of course, these things need a little bit more a personal view and also a personal process. But on the general, we can already do a lot. For example, the distinction of anxiety and fear. So this vague, horrific thing in our guts, also, oh, this is this. And also let's say the ability to decide to look at competence. We can really synchronize on competence, and then we will be a very different group, as if, let's say, we start resonating with our anxieties and stored fears and problems, and then this gets kind of a standing wave, and it kind of strengthens the whole process, and then we are like a herd of chicken without head and all running all over the place.
Yeah, it was amazing to go through the whole cycle, that movement cycle from irritation into fear, into competencies, and into the adult, the mature person. It was really such a different shift of energy and relationship into the body. It was quite profound for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that was like also why I designed it like that. So that was, but great. When it works for you, it's fine, and if it doesn't work, you do something better.
Thank you.
Don't believe me, for sure, but take what makes sense for you.
Yeah, it's like you say, there's other people, there's people there, and we don't have to invent the wheel, and we can take some things and check them for ourselves. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, yeah.
Markus, thank you very much. You have to go. Thank you.
I have to go, yeah. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and stay healthy.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, and also in the moment you decide to connect to your competence, you are also a crystallization point, a north star for your surrounding. When your surrounding starts shaking, we can add to the shakiness, but we also can, okay, what is still working here? Not to deny and suppress, but it doesn't need a therapy in every moment. Some moments it's good to stay functional. Therapy is therapy and function is function. Okay, bye for now.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.